Hello, sports sociology, week two. Thank you all for your week one introductions. It was good to get to know a little bit about each one of you in the online environment. Without question, as I read through your postings, that we all have a lot in common, and obviously sport is that common thread that brings us all together. And we went further into our discussion postings and talking about how sport is a microcosm of our society, and you guys did a great job of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But just to go over some course things here to make sure we're on the same page. A lot of you had sent me some emails in regards to due dates, and I shot an email back out to everybody that we want discussion postings each week posted by the following Sunday. And as for the written work, obviously a good goal would be to stay up each week and have that taken care of each week. However, if that's not the case, we're going to go with the summertime philosophy, and we'll keep working hard to get things done, and it needs to all be done by the end of week 5. Otherwise, there'll be a 0 for those unrecorded projects. So I recommend that you keep up on the work from week to week, and by all means, if you have questions, feel free to get after me with that. I'm going to talk a little bit today, a little longer video than the first one, at least is my plan. I just want to review a little bit. You guys did a great job on your discussion postings and giving examples of how sport is a microcosm of our society, and a lot of you were able to give personal examples on how you see sport being such a vital part of our society. And I think that chapter 1 and 2, and 2 getting more to the historical aspect and looking at the timeline and understanding where we're at in 2013 and going back 1,000 years ago, and how sport was a part of our society then. And without question, we've seen development over the years. And those of you who had me for class before, I use an operating definition to define sport as an activity, an experience, or a business that's focused on athletics, fitness, leisure, recreation. And that definition is a broad-based definition and encompasses a lot of different things. But I think without question, as we think about those 3 primary aspects, sport is an activity, it's an experience, and it's definitely a business. And those 3 things, I think, really bring a lot of different aspects as we talk about sport within our society. And again, the point of this class, and most of you I'm sure have taken a sociology class, is not to rehash the principles of basic sociologies, but it's to look specifically at the issues as in our society related to sport. And I think from a positive side, you guys did a great job of explaining that in your discussion posting, is that I think we have a lot of examples of how important sport is to us as human beings, and whether it's from a fan identification perspective, the loyalty that we feel as fans, the loyalty and interest that we feel as participants, as athletes, as coaches, our dedication to that aspect of it, as just our everyday life. You think about how sport is tied into different aspects. Again, going back way in time, a designated page in the newspaper for hundreds and hundreds of years reporting about sport. And without question, you think about where we're at today and how technology has enhanced that even to a higher level now, with obviously access that we have right to our telephones, the things that we get on our telephone, whether it be from getting a score to watching a game to tracking a game. Without question, it just shows more so in 2013 how much sport is part of our life. Also from, you think about our society as a whole, and again we're talking about sport in a broad-based aspect. We're identified, and it's in this textbook as well as others, as a leisure-oriented society, that we choose to be leisure-oriented, to do things that are outside of the workplace, and we just use discretionary spending in doing so. So whether it be taking vacations, whether it be attending a sporting event, whether it be the clothes that we wear, the things that we spend money on, and how sport is an influence on that. I have 3 young children, and without question, sport has influenced their lives in a positive way, as well as in a way that's definitely affected my checkbook from identifying with a certain brand of shoes and a certain athlete's brand and look and those types of things. And without question, it has an impact, a positive and negative impact on a lot of young and old people as we think about how sport is, within our society. Again, the aspect of discretionary spending, as I mentioned, as a society, we without question, as we think about the business of sport, have put money and spent money into sport. And I'm sure all of you have, whether it be from buying equipment to attending a game as a fan, and how that is a part of what we do. One of you or a few of you mentioned your discussion postings. I know the book does a good job of talking about the Super Bowl in itself, a single one-day event that has become almost a holiday in some aspects when you think about that game in our society. One game, the final game in one sport of football, has become a huge event, social event. For the most part, you'd be lucky to find 50% of the people at a Super Bowl party even know who's playing the Super Bowl, but yet they're there because it's part of a social component, a socialization aspect. And sport, without question, has been a vehicle for a lot of us to bring individuals together. It's something that is, I know personally, has been a common thread, as well as a safety net to make conversation with people. As a married man, I go to events with my wife that I don't necessarily want to go to, but 9 out of 10 times I can pull out the sport card and make a conversation with about anybody, whether it be, did you catch last night's game, or whatever the case may be. Sport has definitely served itself in that. But one final example I want to give as we talk about sport as a microcosm of our society is really a local example. And again, those of you who've had me for other classes have heard me talk about the impact from the aspect of sport as a business and what it has meant to a community and what it means to communities across the country, across the world, and how sport can be that vehicle. And right here in Akron, Ohio, I'm born and raised in the Cuyahoga Falls area. Grew up, as a kid, attending Zip events with my dad and my grandfather, and I've been around the city of Akron, my whole life. And for those of you that have only been around Akron for a number of years, you're seeing an awesome downtown area. Well, I can tell you that 15 years ago, that did not exist at all. And 20 years ago, it was a completely different place. And then going back 60, 70 years ago, it was a different place in a very positive way. So, going back to when my parents were children, back in the 50s, downtown Akron was happening. There was a lot of activity, a lot of things going on, and that took a big dive to where it was a ghost town for a number of years. And then about 15 plus years ago, we saw a revitalization of downtown Akron, and it all had to do with sport. The city of Akron committed $33 million to building Canal Place and the stadium that now is the home of the Akron Arrows. And that really just started economic development and really just planted a seed that has now spread throughout the city of Akron to what you see today. And really that project, what you see in downtown Akron right now, started with sport. It started with a AA baseball stadium and a commitment from the city, a commitment from private owners to make AA professional baseball part of the Akron community. And I can go on and on about that. I'm not going to, but just one example as we think about the value of it from an economic perspective as well as a socialization perspective. Being able to bring a community together to watch and be a part of big time baseball right in your backyard is a great example. So great job on chapter 1, 2, and 3. And again, make sure we're keeping up with the written assignments along with the discussion postings. For this week, we're in one chapter. We're in chapter 4, and this week is set up a little bit different. You're going to have multiple short videos that I'm going to have you watch just to kind of shape some perspective on youth sport. I'm assuming that all of you watching have had some participation or interest or some tie to youth sport. Personally, I was a youth sport participant as well. I've been a high school coach for 20 plus years. I coach high school football and high school track at Talmadge High School. And I have now resurfaced as a youth sport coach the last 5 years now. I have 3 young children. I have a 10-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and an 8-year-old son who are all very active in youth sport, and I have gotten active with them as a youth sport coach. And as I continue to be involved in coaching as a big part of my life, and now having to work with different populations and working with high school age students, as well as now working with the youth sport age students. And there's without question some things that are on a different scale, on a different level when we think about what we're putting into it, the development, the tactical aspect, the aspects relative to participation as a whole. I know personally that I look at my participation in youth sport, and without question, it provided me with some opportunities for development and for socialization and for developing character qualities and understanding aspects relative to hard work. And without question, that's why I want my kids to be involved in youth sport as well. But there's also some issues with youth sport, and I have a few stories that I can share with you, and I'm sure that you have a few that you can share with us as well, which is part of what this week is about. So this week, you're going to watch some videos and continue to shape some perspective and understanding youth sport in our society. And in doing so, there's 2 specific videos. One's a podcast, and one's a short video from SportsIllustrated.com that talks a little bit more about some issues in youth sport. You're going to provide a summary, about those 2 specific videos or podcasts. And then there's going to be a short reading quiz that'll get you into chapter 4 a little bit and identifying some of those things that are right about youth sport and some of those things that are wrong about youth sport. And it's something that again, as we think about it, and I'm thrusted right into it right now, because of the age of my children and where we're at and the development of them, and why are we participating in sport? What is it about? Is it a win at all cost environment? Is it truly about creating a fun developmental environment? And a lot of that has to do with the adults that are involved. A lot of it has to do with the parents and the coaches, and how that is part of how those leagues work. And again, you'll see in these videos, and I'm sure you have some examples of your own that very much play into the negative side of the things that can go wrong as we think about that continuum of from the ages of 5 to 12, and as you get into the book, it'll talk about the disengagement theory in youth sport, where we see this huge drop off from that 10, 11, 12-year-old age group, from a very high level of participation in sport to where now, boom, we're seeing a big drop off. And sports sociologists are questioning why. Why are these things occurring? What's going on that are taking kids away from participating in youth sports? So those are some of the things that you're going to be asked to think about and do a little bit of reflection and writing about. This week's discussion posting will be to identify what you see as some of those major issues in youth sport, and then to share some personal examples or stories that you may have on how youth sport may have affected you in a positive or negative way. And in most cases, I'm sure, at least from a negative perspective, even a positive perspective, has a lot to do with the adults that are involved. And that's why we look at the things that we do and how important that can be to the development of young people. And that's something that I know that I look at my role as a youth sport coach now with my children on, that I want this to be a positive experience for them, something they take with them as they move on into life, and not something that ends up with being a burnout situation or a very negative experience. So those are the things I want you to think about this week. Again, I appreciate your efforts here in week 1, and by all means, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or send me an email, and I look forward to reading what you have to say about youth sport. Have a great week. We'll see you later.